That would be right here.
Sir.
Strzok, you said earlier in this hearing you were concerned about a hostile foreign power affecting our election. Do you recall the Intelligence Community Inspector General, Chuck McCulloch, having an investigation into an anomaly found on Hillary Clinton's emails?
I do not.
Well, let me refresh your recollection. The Intelligence Community Inspector General, Chuck McCulloch, sent his investigator, Frank Rucker, along with an ICIG attorney, Jeanette McMillan, to brief you and Dean Chappelle and two other FBI personnel that I won't name at this time about an anomaly they had found on Hillary Clinton's emails that were going to and from the private unauthorized server that you were supposed to be investigating. Now, do you remember it?
I remember meeting Mr. Rucker on either one or two occasions. I do not remember the specific content or discussions.
Well, I'll help you with that too then. Mr. Rucker reported to those of you, the four of you there, in the presence of the ICIG attorney, that they had found this anomaly on Hillary Clinton's emails going through her private server. And when they had done the forensic analysis, they found that her emails, every single one except for four, over 30,000 of them, were going to an address that was not on the distribution list. It was a compartmentalized bit of information that was sending it to an unauthorized source. Do you recall that?
Sir, I don't.
Well, he went on to explain it, and you didn't say anything.
No.
You thanked him, you shook his hand, but the problem was that it was going to an unauthorized source that was a foreign entity unrelated to Russia, and from what you've said here, you did nothing more than nod and shake the man's hand when you didn't seem to be all that concerned about our national integrity of our election when it was involving Hillary Clinton. So the forensic examination was done by the ICIG, and they can document that, but you were given that information and you did nothing with it. And one of the things I found most egregious with Mr. Horowitz's testimony, and by the way, Horowitz got a call 4 times by someone wanting to brief him, leaving messages telling him about this, and he never returned the call. He had 500 pages of bias that he gave us, and then he threw a bone to the Democrats and said, but we can't find bias. And let me tell you, when you have text messages, Mr. Strzok, the way you do, saying the things you did, you'd been better off coming in here and say, look, that was my bias. And you kind of get around to that a little bit when you say, hey, everybody's got political views. Those are called biases, and we all have them. And you have come in here and said, I had no bias. And you do it with a straight face. And I watched you in the private testimony you gave. And I told some of the other guys, he is really good. He's lying. He knows, we know he's lying. And he could probably pass a polygraph. It's amazing.
Mr. Chairman.
No, this is my
Mr.
time.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
It needs to be paused.
This point of order.
No.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
A member of this committee just asserted that this witness, who is under oath and a former agent of the FBI, lied. There is no evidence that. I ask him to withdraw it.
I do not withdraw it. He is not a member of Congress. It's not a violation of the rule. And just as you have been expressing bias through your members about what a hero
There is not a
is
single
coming
person on
here
this
and
committee
lying.
who has ever characterized a witness
Gentleman
as
from
lying.
Rhode Island,
Sitting here,
the gentleman-
appearing before
It's my
this committee.
time.
That's a disgrace.
Gentleman from Rhode Island will
Praise
suspend.
him. No, the disgrace
Mr.
is what this man has done.
The gentleman
to
from
our
Texas
justice
will
system.
suspend for a moment.
There is the disgrace. and it won't be recaptured anytime soon because of the damage you've done to the justice system. And I've talked to FBI agents around the country. You've embarrassed them, you've embarrassed yourself, and I can't help but wonder when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
Credibility of a witness
Shame
is
on you,
always
Mr.
an
Chairman.
issue.
Mr.
and you
Chairman, please, there's
Have you
Mr.
know-
Chairman, this is intolerable harassment of the
What is
witness.
wrong with that? You need your medication.
The gentleman controls the time.
I ask that the witness be permitted to respond to
He
that
will be
despicable
permitted.
search.
He will be permitted
Did
to
you ever
respond. The
talk
gentleman
to
controls
Hillary
the time.
Clinton during your investigation, besides the one questioning you mentioned, before that or after that to this day?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
It is, I think, against the rules of the House for a member of the committee to be impugning the character of a witness.
It is not.
He should ask questions to elicit. The purpose of this hearing is to elicit information. He should ask questions to elicit information. He should not be impugning the character of the witness.
The gentleman is advised the rules of the House only are directed to members of the House and the President of the United States.
Therefore, in other words, it is okay to impugn the character of witnesses in any way whatsoever?
Well, listen, I've heard many members on your side of the aisle impugn character of somebody who is covered by the rules of the House. But the gentleman, the gentleman has 20 seconds left. The clock will be turned back on, and he can complete his time, and then the witness can respond.
So if you talk to Hillary Clinton, other than the time she was examined in front of the witnesses.
No.
So after throwing away what you have with all the bias you have, you've never even gotten a thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman may respond.
Sir, well, that's quite a set of statements. and
Mr.
I'm not quite
Chairman,
sure
I
where
did
to
not
respond.
finish with a question.
The
There was
gentleman,
no question asked.
Mr.
There was
Chairman,
no
he's been given the
answer
opportunity to
neither.
the
respond.
gentleman will suspend. The time of the gentleman has expired, and as I've
The
indicated
rules
earlier,
of our hearings are if there is a question asked during the time, the witness may respond to the question
witness
after
is-
the time.
the witness is going to be allowed to respond briefly.
That's a new rule.
Sir, first, I assure
No
you,
question.
under oath, as I spoke also during my interview a week or two ago, I have always told the truth. The fact that you would accuse me otherwise, the fact that you would question whether or not that was the sort of look I would engage with in a family member who I have acknowledged hurting, goes more to a discussion about your character and what you stand for and what is going inside you.
It's
and the
to
integrity
your
of man.
credibility,
That-
and
while-
you lost your
Both-
credibility.
Both
And
individuals.
while I
You've
doubt it-
lost your credibility.
While
That's
I doubt
the
it
problem.
plays well
Gentleman
to
from
America,
Texas will,
I'm not sure that it plays
the
well.
gentleman from Texas will suspend. The witness has had ample opportunity to express his feelings about that, and now the chair recognizes the
Mr.
gentleman's
Chairman,
floor
there
to
is
Mr.
a
Deutsch.
discussion about the representative's first assertion about what the ICIG said that I would like to respond to.
Very briefly.
Very briefly, I have no recollection of that conversation. I can tell you I am not a computer forensic expert. I can tell you that every allegation that we had, and ICIG was a great and close partner, every allegation that we had, whether from them or anybody else, was forwarded to experts who looked at it. The scores and scores of servers and BlackBerries and emails and everything we got were combed over carefully by the FBI's experts to see if there's any indicia of intrusion.
But you don't recall
The things
going
you're saying,
over
sir,
those emails,
a lot-
correct?
Much
Gentlemen
of what you're
will
saying, I
suspend.
have no idea what you're talking about, and frankly,
And the-
this
and the
strikes me
witness
as
will
wrong.
suspend as
I
well.
do not know what you're talking about.
That
you
is
just
enough.
can't let a witness
The-
go on forever.
the-
When the fact is, you never did anything
Chairman,
about those,
order.
correct?
Regular order.
You didn't do anything
Was-
about it.
Sir, if there was a lead, I gave it to the team, unequivocally.
The gentleman-
there was nothing along
Mr.
the lines
Strzok,
that
you will
was not addressed.
suspend.
Well, that'll come out.
Mr.
enough.
Gomer, you will suspend.